Welcome back to Pogchamps 2. Today we see itshafu going up against easywithaces. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss more of these Pogchamps videos. But now let's start with the game. So the first game starts with the hikaru defense. And this is a very solid defense if you know how to play it right. But the problem is it can get very tight for you in the defense if you don't know how to play it right. So for example, it could look more like a French defense where you're going to have these very two tight pawns here if you manage to not play this right, which is actually what happens because easywithaces makes this very quick blunder in the start, playing the move knight to f6, and the reason this is a blunder is that once the knight moves, you can solidify the defense with d4, and now, like I said, it's more of like the French defense where, you know, these pawns are very they're very stuck here, and it seems like white just has a lot more space than black. That being said, you usually want to look for a move like c5 or even sometimes a move like f6 in these positions to open up the pawn structure, and that's actually exactly what easywithaces does in a couple of moves. So whenever the position is very locked like this and it's not, you know, in your favor, obviously for white this is perfect, but if you're playing as black, you do want to look for the moves like these. And you'll notice that's exactly what happens. And now, all of a sudden, you know, the position has completely changed. The pawns are no longer, you know, good. If you take, you have these two very weak pawns. The knight can take either of them, same with the bishop. And also now this knight has a very nice spot for it to go on c6. So, you know, ultimately, easywithaces seems to have a very good position because of this very nice pawn push on c5. And here, this is okay because you're pinning the knight, so the knight cannot take the pawn. But the problem is the second that black castles, what changed? Well, now the knight is no longer pinned. So after white castles, the knight now takes the pawn, and already some material advantage for easywithaces. But more than that, a very good central advantage. You'll notice that hafu has no pieces here, no pawns here to try to push in the center. So already easywithaces seems to have a way better position. But the game is definitely not over. Now the trade of a bishop and a knight here happens. I don't think this was the best, you know, trade because you still want to keep all your pieces in order to attack, especially when you are down material and maybe when you don't have the best position. So I think right now maybe not trading would have been a little bit better, but it's such a very, you know, it's a very small difference. Now in this position, you play this move, you attack a pawn, and it seems like black can just take this knight and ruin your pawn structure. But the thing is, if black does this, you have a very nice intermediate move, which is taking this pawn here because it's check. If it wasn't check, obviously the bishop can retreat, or the bishop can obviously in this case take. But because it's check, black has to move the king or block, and in either case now you take. So now you've just won a pawn and made this pawn weak, made this pawn, you know, potentially a little bit weaker if it ever tries to push. So overall, that would have been very nice. But in the actual game, instead, the queen comes here and defends from this idea. So this is a wonderful move. And it doesn't seem like it does much, but obviously the idea is stopping the queen taking here on e6. So this is a very good move by easywithaces. The queen is hit back. And now you see this position where all of a sudden easywithaces has this very strong central pawn position here with, I mean, a bishop in the heart of the pawn structure. And he has a very, you know, easy and fluid way of developing all of his pieces. So it seems very good. He puts the knight here. I think this is a more active square. It could, you know, potentially jump to one of these spots, but it's okay. And here the bishop comes here. Now you are threatening something if you're playing as hafu because you're threatening to take the knight, the queen takes, and now you take the bishop. So a lot of times when there's this weak, you know, piece here in the center that's, you know, you're attacking, you can always try to take away the defender and then take that piece. That's always something that you want to do. So that is a good idea, but instead the bishop or easywithaces recognizes this threat, takes his bishop and takes the knight immediately. And I mean, in this position, you maybe can even take the knight, but then it gets a little tricky. Like here, bishop takes, you can take here because it's check again, and then you move your rook. I don't know if that's the best continuation, but regardless, hafu just takes with the pawn here. But you can see that there are a lot of tricky situations. Now, when you have these two pawns, because these are isolated pawns, it means that there's no pawn that can defend it. So this becomes a very big threat for white, or this becomes a very big weakness for white. And so already black is trying to attack both of these pawns at once, and it becomes very tricky. Here, obviously, this just trade of two pieces. This move attacks the pawn, and easy with aces just simply defends by blocking it. Both of the rooks get activated into better positions for white in the central positions. The problem with the rook coming here is now this rook is not as defended as it was before, right? This rook is no longer defending it, and what does that mean? Well, it means that you can try to exploit this by putting the queen on e5, followed by taking this pawn here. And the reason that you can take this pawn is obvious. Well, the reason you can take this pawn is obviously because this pawn can't take, because then you can just get a free rook. And the reason that you need the queen here before just taking is because otherwise the queen would have been able to take. So if you move the queen here and then you take, if the queen takes, you take the queen, and again there's this pin, so black is going to lose the rook here. So that's the idea of how to exploit this weakness, but instead white just tries to triple up on this file. And now both players try to use their queen a little bit better. So black tries to, get the queen involved by starting to attack this pawn, and maybe in the future attacking this pawn as well. And then white starts to involve its queen by moving the queen over here to g5, where it's a very big threat. You're threatening obviously to take this pawn, once you take the rook, this pawn. Everything is under attack right now. All of these three pawns here are under attack. So a move like queen over here would not really work, because after take, you're losing this pawn. But this is the best move because there's nothing better. Notice if you move here, well, now you can simply take, because the queen is the protector of this. So if take, you obviously take here, and now you just want a pawn. So overall, this is a very strong attack, and maybe black just didn't recognize all the pieces that are being attacked, like this rook here, because black ended up just playing f4. And this is kind of where it started going downhill. From here, super solid game by both players. One of the most high-level games I think I've ever seen in Pogchamps. Just a lot of great ideas and plans, but this is a huge blunder, just missing the fact that the queen took the rook. And from here, everything went sideways. They traded a little bit, and in this position, easy with aces resigned. Let's go on to game 2 and figure out if Hafu can close the deal and win both games. Easy with aces starts with the white pieces in this game, and notice that he has to win this game in order to have a chance to win in the match. And now black already starts to form some sort of attack on this weak c2 square, threatening to fork these two pieces. And the only logical way to stop this is moving out the bishop and then swinging the rook here to c2 or to c1, preparing to block any attacks on c2, which is what white ends up doing. So very good for white. So now a move like b4 is no longer as powerful, because obviously the rook can come here and everything is fine for white. Instead of this move, though, black continues to develop and white starts to go on a more of an aggressive side, and I think that's completely fine if you need a win. So right now white really needs this win, so maybe trying to go and attack and trade is not horrible for white. Just trying to be the the aggressive player here. And now it's a very interesting position, because white takes, and now black can take with a few pieces. Obviously you don't want to take with the king. If you take with the knight, the downfall of this is that you're undeveloping a piece, so that's not nothing that you want to do. If you take with the queen, the downfall is that you're losing a pawn. So all three choices are pretty bad in the game. Black takes with the queen, but instead easy with aces does not see the free pawn and just takes the knight. And now we're in this very strange position where both players don't really have many minor pieces on the board, but especially developed. So white is trying to develop some of the pieces, and this is a good idea, trying to get tempo, but you're just hanging a pawn here, and in the next few moves you're just hanging more pieces, so the rook has to move. You can also potentially move the king here to defend this, but I don't know if that's better. So the rook has to move, and now you're gambiting, or you're losing another pawn. And after the queen moves, another trade happens, and you'll notice that already it seems like black is in a much more pleasant position, just being the person who is attacking more. And look at this position that white has, all of these pieces not really doing much. Black castles, which seems very passive, but maybe trying to reroute the rook here and get it into the action. And in this position, the queen is obviously being attacked, so you maybe have ideas of moving the queen here, which comes with check. But you can also play this very interesting move, taking the pawn here. If take, you obviously can take here. It is even with check. And then that seems very promising for black, but instead, you're just winning a pawn, but instead this move was played by hafu. And now in this position, now finally she realized this beautiful move. So hafu has been playing really good chess, both of these games, but overall in the whole tournament. And this is just one of the examples of that. I mean, this knight coming here is a fantastic move. When your queen is attacked, a lot of players immediately are like, okay, where can I move it? Where can I move it? They don't even realize that you don't really always have to move it. So this is a very good move. And from here, hafu just continued playing wonderful moves, moving the queen in here, trying to put more pressure on white. And notice that now there's this very big threat of the queen coming here and forking these two pieces, because the king is obviously within the forking potential of the rook. So if the queen was ever to take this free pawn, or seemingly free pawn, then now this fork is possible. This queen essentially is the only thing that's right now guarding from this fork. And that's why the queen can no longer go. So this move, maybe trying to now allow the queen to move, because now the bishop is guarding it, but then the bishop would fall. So I don't exactly know what this move is. Maybe just trying to trade, but it does give hafu another wonderful move, forking these two pieces, and from here you win the bishop, and you basically win the game, especially with hafu being such a strong player. There was a chance for blundering, maybe if you try to attack the queen, this is mate, but I mean, hafu is not going to miss that, and instead just closes the deal in very good fashion, checkmating easy with aces. So that is how the match ended. Hafu playing some wonderful chess. Make sure you subscribe if you want more Pogchamps videos, and make sure you check out my brand new website at www.chessgeek.org. Thank you all for watching. Peace out.